Hi there, Antioch Church family. This is Pastor Matt, and I'm so glad to just be with you today and want to share a few things with you. I remember a few months ago when things were kind of normal, having to take some time to visit the doctor. Wasn't feeling really well, and I remember going to the doctor and having to wait in the waiting room. And if you're anything like me, one of the things that drives me nuts is wasted time. I want to be productive with my schedule, I want to be efficient with my time, and so I don't like to wait. And it was minute after minute after minute. Eventually the doctor saw me and things were okay. But the reason why I share that story with you today is I think that so many of us can relate to that, especially during times like we're living in right now. So many of us are waiting on things to get back to normal. Some of us are waiting for this virus to be over. Maybe you're waiting for a job to come back or waiting for some financial stability. And I understand all of those things. And so one of the great things is I think that we see this theme a lot throughout God's Word on waiting. And so I just want to share a couple of encouraging things with you today, some revealing things that we see in God's Word about this subject and this topic of waiting. And so the first thing that I want you to know today is this, that waiting is inescapable. In fact, one of the things that we see over and over again in God's Word is that there are people that had to wait. And we think about Abraham and Sarah. They had to wait for their promised son, Isaac. And eventually God did give them this son. But just that waiting was I'm sure, for parents, very difficult thing. We know that the nation of Israel had to wait 40 years in the wilderness, and there were so many things that God was teaching them over and over again, and eventually they did get to the promised land. God gave them that. We know that the Old Testament prophets were continually talking about the coming of the Messiah. When is the Messiah coming? And there was a lot of waiting in that, and eventually Jesus did come, and Jesus is the Messiah. We know that. But we see this theme of waiting. And the reason why that I tell you that is this, that we shouldn't be surprised when we have to wait, even though it's frustrating, even though there are a lot of questions with that. Don't be surprised when we have to wait, and be willing to learn, be willing to listen to God as He's speaking to us in His Word, as He's showing us things and lessons that we can learn through that waiting time. The second thing that I want to share with you is this. As tough as waiting can be, we know, for those of you that had to wait, waiting is refreshing, and waiting can be refreshing. And so what waiting does is immediately shows us that we're not in control. And that's something that's tough for me. But it does show us this. Waiting points us to that there is someone who is wiser and stronger and better than us. God is God, loved ones, and we're not. And that can be a very tough lesson to understand. But God has always been in charge. We know this. God is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. And so He has written history a long time ago. He knows what is going to happen. And let's trust Him in that waiting period and the uncertainties of life. The third thing that I want to share with you today is this. Waiting is revealing. And sometimes that's not a good thing. Waiting is revealing because sometimes during that waiting, it shows us who we are. And I know for me, it shows me oftentimes that I can get agitated. I get rude with my words or my behavior. Sometimes I'm more focused on myself than others' needs. And so just like God uses waiting to announce that He is king, that He is in control, He also uses waiting to reveal our hearts and our minds, and to really help us seek Him, to restore His redeeming grace and help us realize how much we need Him. And we need His grace and His mercy and His love and forgiveness. A couple of things that I just want to share with you. And here's number 4. Waiting is productive. Waiting is productive. In fact, Psalms 27:4 says this, wait for the Lord, be strong, and let your heart take courage. And I want you to know that today. I want your heart to take courage in these times of waiting. This means that God never, ever wastes those times where we have to wait for him, we have to wait for answers. Rather, waiting is fundamentally about who we are becoming as we wait. A lot of times God is growing us, God is stretching us, God is showing us things that we need to learn during those times. And so waiting should always build our character as we are growing in our faith as men and women, and as maybe we're helping our children right now. Some of you are having to stay at home and learn some of those lessons. I just want to encourage you to wait on the Lord and to seek him. God, I need your help to be a better parent. I need your help to know what is going on in the uncertainties. And then here's the last thing, and this is a beautiful thing to be reminded of. Remember this, waiting is temporary. In fact, in Revelations 21:4, we see this. Revelations 21:4 says, one day the former things will pass away. And I want you to know this today, that includes waiting. So while we wait, God intends that waiting would make us desire him more, that we would be more hungry to meet with him and to spend time with him in his word and prayer and learning, God, what are you teaching me during this time? And then also this, to remember that this earth, this life, it's not our final home. It's not our final destination. It's a preparation for what's coming. And that's eternity. God's word says that he is going to create a new heaven and a new earth. And so waiting is meant to produce in you a God-honoring dissatisfaction with the status quo, with what's going on right now. So know this, loved ones, waiting is biblical. It's a beautiful thing. It shows us that we have a God who loves us and who does care for us and has always been there for us. Waiting is going to change us, and it's going to help us to rely on the Lord more. And so I want you to find joy in that today. I want you to know that we are here for you. We love you, and just are praying that God would be with you in the days and the weeks to come. Hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for tuning in. God bless.